Max Verstappen is, by every measurable metric, the most dominant driver in Formula One history. 3 world championships, over 60 race wins, a machine that Red Bull built their entire future around. And yet, buried inside his contract with Red Bull Racing is a clause that gives him the power to walk away, without consequence, at any moment. What kind of contract gives a driver that kind of power? What did Verstappen, or more precisely, his father Jos, see coming that made this clause not just desirable, but non-negotiable? And why would Red Bull, a team with more leverage than almost any other constructor in the modern era, agree to it? The answer lies somewhere between a power struggle that nearly tore Red Bull apart, a father's obsession with control, and a legal mechanism that almost no other driver in the sport has ever been able to secure. To understand what the clause actually says and what it means, you first need to understand how Formula One contracts actually work. Formula One. Driver contracts are unlike any other sports contract in the world. They are multi-year agreements that bind an athlete not just to a team, but to a commercial structure, to sponsors, to licensing, to media obligations, to technical data. Most drivers sign what the paddock calls a standard works driver agreement. It includes performance clauses, image rights clauses, and a key provision, a no-compete clause that prevents them from driving for a rival team mid-season or even within a defined window after departure. For the majority of drivers on the grid, the team holds most of the cards. The driver can be dropped, released, replaced by a junior academy prospect at the end of a losing streak. But Verstappen's situation was never conventional. He arrived at Red Bull at 17, the youngest driver ever to start a Formula One race, promoted mid-season to the senior team, winner on his very first appearance for them. From that moment, Red Bull didn't just own a talented driver, they owned a phenomenon. And phenomena, as any sports lawyer will tell you, negotiate differently. By 2022, Verstappen had grown into something Red Bull had never truly accounted for, a driver whose value had eclipsed the team's own brand. Someone who, for the first time in the sport's modern era, could genuinely dictate terms. In early 2024, Red Bull Racing entered the most turbulent period in its 20-year history. Christian Horner, the team principal who had built the operation from the ground up, was placed under investigation for alleged inappropriate behavior toward a female employee. The accusation was denied. The investigation concluded without dismissal. But the damage was done, not to Horner's position, but to the team's internal unity. Jos Verstappen, Max's father, his manager, and arguably the most powerful informal influence in the paddock, publicly stated that Horner's continued presence was untenable, that if Horner stayed, the team would implode. These were not idle words. Jos Verstappen does not speak in idle words. Because at that precise moment, Max's contract contained something that made every team principal in Formula One pay very close attention. A performance-linked exit clause, triggered not by Max's performance, but by Red Bull's. But there is a second layer to this clause that makes it uniquely powerful. Unlike most performance clauses in sport, which operate on a rolling calendar basis, this one is understood to be structured around a cumulative threshold. One bad season might not trigger it. The sustained decline of a once dominant team might. And there is a third element, one that makes Formula One insiders genuinely nervous. The clause is believed to include a right of first refusal provision, meaning before Verstappen can be released, Red Bull must be given the opportunity to renegotiate. But if they cannot meet his revised terms, financial or structural, he is free to open conversations with any team on the grid. Mercedes, Ferrari, any team with a budget, a car, and a championship ambition. Suddenly, the most sought-after driver in the world becomes available. What makes this clause almost unprecedented in the sport's history is not its existence. Exit clauses are not unusual. It is the fact that the performance trigger is tied to the team, not the driver. Max Verstappen can walk out of Red Bull without it being his fault, without penalty, and without any obligation to wait for his contract term to expire. The strangest thing about this clause is not what it says. It is what it reveals about how Max Verstappen sees his own career, and perhaps more importantly, how Jos Verstappen designed it. Jos spent years watching his own driving career constrained by teams with more leverage than talent. He watched his son be signed at an age when most teenagers are still in school, and when the moment came to negotiate Max's future, when Red Bull needed Max more than Max needed Red Bull, Jos inserted a mechanism that inverted the entire power structure of Formula One. It is not a clause designed to be triggered. It is a clause designed to be known about. A clause whose very existence changes every conversation, every negotiation, every decision Red Bull makes about its car, its structure, its team principle. Christian Horner survived 2024. Red Bull survived 2024. But in 2025, as the performance gaps widen and the grid closes in, that clause sits inside Verstappen's contract like a loaded question. Max Verstappen is not just the fastest driver on the grid. He is the only driver on the grid who built a legal exit from the sport's most powerful team and made sure everyone knew it. The question is no longer whether Verstappen can leave Red Bull. The question is, which team is actually ready for him? Mercedes have been rebuilding in silence, and what they've constructed in the last 18 months is either the most dangerous car on the grid or the most expensive trap in Formula One history.